Everybody, welcome to the Pygcast. I am your host, Per Platypus, and here is my co-host, Laliette. Laliette, how are you doing?
Good morning.
How has your week been in the Bazaar?
It's been a great week. I think we nailed it with calling out the shorts or jorts, as people like to call them. Definitely was problematic. That got fixed real quick. They made a couple other changes that we both felt were all in line, and I'm really excited to go ahead and call out the other podcasts, which we had previously called out on our unreleased episode that will never be released, and it is called A Bazaar podcast. Three hosts, one guest, three like top 50 players, great insights, and yeah, really happy to introduce them. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. So we're just going to give a shout out to it's Walter Cooler, Metal Phoenix, and I believe you said it was 610.
Mhm.
And yeah, so they run this other podcast. I mean, we're not going to pretend like it's as good as us, but let's just say that maybe they're all better at the game than us. So if they say something different than us, they're probably right. We're probably wrong. However, when it comes to specifically Pygmalion, welcome to the Pygcast, baby. Laliette plays a lot of stuff, but I'm like such a pig main, so that I feel like maybe I'll have more insight on that specifically. But the reason we're bringing them up, other than just it's nice to talk about other people doing similar stuff that we like. I always like supporting other creators, but we wanted to talk about their the way they rank stuff, right? How would you do the terminology? I know it's called fast, but what is the terminology? When do they use this? Is it about builds?
Yes. So this is about when the four things that decide a fight is essentially the way that they outlined this, and it's force, acceleration, stamina, and tankiness. We're going to kind of give our own our own takes on this idea that they came up with.
All right. Yeah. So this is when it's specific builds, right? This is how a fight goes. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing. Well, last time we did it in the unreleased episode, you kind of had me go through it as Pygmalion. Where does Pygmalion fall in all of these? Do we want to go like purely by a character, or do we want to go by specific builds, like an overall character strength or a specific build strength?
Yeah, I mean, we can just give a basic outline, and then you can go ahead and pick whichever version you like.
Yeah. So my understanding here is force is basically how you could distill it down to power. How much are you actually doing? How big are your numbers? Um, how is this including ramping and stuff like that? Like how fast do you get going off? Not how fast you get going up, but how big your numbers go over the course of a fight and how much impact you have.
Yeah, this is just raw ability to defeat the opponent. So however you do that with freezing them forever or with really big numbers or whatever it is,
I
like
would say
how good are you at
this is
doing
like the
that?
inverse of tankiness in a lot of ways. Like you might be able to get tanky enough to let the sandstorm win. This is kind of like how good are you at killing them without having to rely on the game to end it for you. Acceleration is obviously ramp in some regard, Pygmalion, or it could just be how much damage you do, how fast you deal your damage, like a full-on weapon aggro Vanessa, right? Does a lot of damage really quick. It could also be just like how fast does your engine go? How long does it take for you to get going? Pygmalion, although I said he's good, like maybe it does take him 30 seconds and 40 seconds. He's stronger at second 30 and second 40, second 50. So it's constantly ramping. But someone like Vanessa actually might be weaker over that course, and it might be really good right at the start. Boom, second 0 with Clamera, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's generally from their point of view, how fast the build starts and how fast it is once it gets going.
What would you will you do stamina and tankiness since you got their actual notes in front of you?
Yeah, you got it. Stamina, how long the build can keep going for. And like I just want to give a caveat. So this kind of tackles like ammo, but also skills that you can use like 5 to 10 times. And then I guess the last part of that would be whether or not you're able to scale. You know what I mean? So if you have linear damage output and your opponent scales, then they're going to have better stamina than you as well.
Mhm.
And lastly, tankiness, how resistant the build is to the opposing force, and that can be how resistant are you to the different freeze effects or slow effects that they have, right? Radiant or something like that, but also shield, healing, regen, all of those defensive traits.
Yeah, I think that I think we'll use their system today, but I wonder if they want us to use their system or if we should come up with our own. I don't want to steal their thing, but it's just kind of fun to talk about what other people are, how they're thinking about the game. But maybe we'll come up with our own acronym. It'll be called, like I said, it'll be faster, right? It'll be fastest. We'll have to add some more categories. We'll be like, well, it has more categories. It has to be more in depth. Aren't half of these redundant? Shut up, viewer. All right. So let's just go over Pygmalion as a whole and his general strengths, because going over a specific build, I don't know. I feel like that's more likely to change over time, where if they do a patch, we may be wrong about a build, where if Pygmalion as an archetype is probably going to be pretty similar. Um, so, last time we did it reverse. So I don't know why, but let's just do it reverse again. Probably because tankiness is such a good way to start on Pygmalion. This is probably, if we're going with Pygmalion here, he's probably like a 10 out of 10 on tankiness. Even like Dooley, who would be the second tankiest character, I think is like a probably not a full magnitude, but he's definitely not on the same level. Like Dooley can do a really, really crazy shield thing where he gets a lot of shields, but Pygmalion has every measurable tankiness like thing ramped up really high. He has really good shielding. If not literally the best, then he's second to Dooley, and I would argue it's close. He has the best healing. He has probably the best regeneration currently until Matt comes out. Vanessa has some regeneration. He has by far the best HP. It's not even close on terms of HP. And he has the best way of scaling all these things up over the course of a fight. So he'll get tankier as a fight goes on as well. So I don't think anyone's gonna argue about the tankiness of Pig. He's easily the tankiest character, and it's easiest for him. He's the only character that accidentally gets tanky. No one else like accidentally gets tanky. You'll just be like, oh man, how did I get an extra 3,000 HP? Oh, I had a signet ring or whatever it's called, the ring that gives me HP every hour. Stamina, I would say that this is a category that pretty much doesn't exist for Pig. Skills that have limited triggers, I almost never use because, or if they do, he doesn't get to trigger it enough times for it to ever matter because he doesn't use that many item triggers outside of like Matchbox. He has one item that has one ammo. I guess he has the slingshot too and the luge, so he has two items, but you don't really use those. It's not really relevant. So I don't think stamina is, I think I would give this like an NA myself. I just don't think it's really applicable unless you want to include his ability to scale. No one scales as good as Pig does over the course of a fight, I think. Dooley has infinite loops, but I don't think the scaling is as strong. It's just that the engine goes so fast that it may not necessarily go as tall. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's kind of tied with Dooley in that regard. I will say you put much less work into scaling Pig over the course of a fight. Dooley, you have all these pieces that have to go together just right. And Pig is like, I got a Ganjo. There we go. I'm scaling.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because you say NA, and I kind of just say that he has really good stamina, right? It's like the
That's
reasons
true.
he has really good stamina is because he doesn't really use ammo items. He's not reliant on them. He doesn't really need those skills. The skills, and he doesn't have very many of them, right? Like when I play as Pig, I don't see a lot of the use 5 times, use 10 times skills. I'm not sure if they're just not in the pool or if I'm just like kind of blanking them out of my head because I know they're not even good with him. Like why would I ever use like the things that say like your core the first 5 times, ten
Yeah.
times, there's no core. So that's not going to show up, right? And it's like what you get instead is every time I use a property haste. And it's like, well, that's way better than the core hasting 5 or 10 times. And it doesn't have a stamina issue because it keeps going for the duration of the fight.
You're absolutely right. Having infinite stamina doesn't necessarily make it a not applicable, even though it did in my mind because I've never considered this category. That just makes it really good. The fact that I've never considered this category, right? I'm like, oh, I don't know, infinite. So infinite's pretty good. Do you want to do acceleration and force? Give me kind of what you think, and I'll kind of chime in on what I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think acceleration is probably one of Pig's weaknesses, right? The design of Pig is much more when I hit hard, so I make a good use of my triggers outside of Cold Room Matchbox, right? Those kind of are his go burr things. But for the most part, you're going to be using like double whammies, like Crook is 5 seconds. Most of the things you use with Crook is like 7 seconds. You of course can get some specific items like he has the Lottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
that can go very fast, but starts out very slow. So I think he has probably the worst acceleration out of the three heroes. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's not very necessary because of his strength in other areas.
Yeah, Pig has acceleration as a exception, but not as the rule, right? Like a Lottle being a 1 second thing. Like, yeah, that item is really fast, but that's the one weapon that has any speed on it. Cold Room could technically be fast, but that's like an exception. And then like, what's the other one that is pretty fast? Like Matchbox. Matchbox is pretty fast, but again, it's like these are tend to exceptions. Like most of his stuff is like 7 seconds, 6, 4. 4 would be really fast for Pig. I'm like, whoa, this is only 4 seconds. Whoa. But it's like 6 seconds, 7 seconds, and then you get to like the forts, right? Like the 8 seconds. All your 8 second things are faster. So he does have some acceleration, but it's definitely an exception, not the rule. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't. Here's the thing. I don't imagine because Pig's whole identity is typically, unless you have a specific like crooked Lotto build, is like survive until you win. Like eventually you'll outscale them and you'll win. But if you don't, you might die before then, which is why you're tanky and you have like that kind of stuff. But I can't imagine them right now releasing a slower character. Maybe a character that's on par, but like if there's a character that takes longer to get going than Pig, I'm not really sure how that would work. Maybe Mac has that potential because he's all about building up poison and regeneration. What is 4 out of 10
Yeah.
versus 5 out of 10 versus 3 out of 10? I'm just putting a number that's relatively low to signify that it's low. All right, don't give the number too much.
I think you're absolutely right, though. He should probably, for the duration, be the slowest hero. The only one that's probably going to rival him, if you've looked at some of the times on Jules. But we really don't know what Jules is going to look like when she actually launches. There's only like 30-ish items in the game for Jules right
Is
now.
Jules
So
the food one or the tool one?
the food one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all I know is all of her shit, even because if you look at Scoville, it all has multicast based on other food and stuff. So it's like slow numbers with multicast is only actually, it's like kind of slow. It's like slow to start, but like it makes up for it immediately once it triggers
Exactly,
once.
and that's the important part of about acceleration, right? Is it's not just how soon do you start, but like once you start, how fast do you continue being? And multicast is a great way of kind of showing that you can be fast after you start going.
Yeah, like Pig has an engine that keeps getting like he's driving and his top speed keeps going up every second the fight goes on. And in fact, this is what I think is important also. I think everyone has this, but I think um more so than any other character, not from a in battle standpoint, but an out of battle standpoint, Pig starts the weakest, where he's day one, hour one, he's probably the weakest of the three characters currently in the game. And then day 16, he's probably the strongest outside of like some ridiculous god. Like you could still lose, but like some ridiculous god dually builds or second zero, instantly everything's going off. Like he keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger over the course of the game. More so at a faster rate than I think other characters do. Like if you look at his power curve, I think it's like a more extreme curve than other characters.
Definitely. And he gets stronger the further in the games you get. Like you said, day 15, 16, most of the people you're facing are pigs.
All right, so what about
So
Force here?
force. I think that he is the weakest in force as well, which is the raw power to end your opponent. Not that he doesn't have the ability to end opponents, right? Because it's like a double whammy on an HP pig still is gonna one shot somebody. But the issue is they could just kill you before you ever get to use the item. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at force wrong here. How do you rate his force?
I mean, this could be as simple as like win rate, right? How often do you win versus them? But that seems a little shallow. If I'm thinking about Force, here's the thing. I'm measuring it based off the Sandstorm. Maybe that's a little tied to acceleration, but it's like I don't usually kill my enemy. The Sandstorm is usually what kills him for the first 5 days, you know? But he has such a big top end. Like, no character in the game has as big of a number on a thing as what Pig gets up to. Like, Pig gets the biggest number on his things eventually. Whereas things like Dooley and Vanessa, they'll have small, like, this is 100, but it triggers 16 times a second. Pig will be like, this hits for 50,000 damage. Bonk. But if it's the ability is to kill your opponent, I think Pig relies on the Sandstorm a lot until the late game where you plan on outscaling them. So
Yeah.
also, like, I will say, I feel like I have a really easy time against monsters as Pig for the most part because again, they don't have like a really strong offensive output most of the time right at the start, so you have time to scale up to get them. But you know what? I think I'm lying because when I play Vanessa, man, even the harder monsters, they just die before their stupid gimmicks start. So, I mean, I think you're right. I don't know exactly how I would define it. Again, this is their like terminology that we're using, so it doesn't 100% click with how I think about it. But I still want to use it. I would say Pig. I don't know. He's definitely the worst at Force. I would say if you look at the other characters and what they do, I don't think he is about overwhelming force. You know, he is
Right.
anything. He is the inverse. He's the tankiness. He is the obelisk in the sandstorm, being weathered down, surviving until they eventually die.
Yes, and this is just based off of my understanding from watching their podcast, so and reading the Reddit posts. But like for Force, I don't think Sandstorm is really included in the Force, even though the sentence we read it would be. But I think when they talk about it more, Sandstorm ends up being in like other areas like stamina and tankiness, right? Your ability to weather that. But like Force, I think we said in the last episode, we kind of look at it as in those 30 seconds of the match, how much damage are you able to do versus other heroes.
Where in this list do you think they or would you put economy? Because Pig is clearly the best at economy. It's not even like close.
Yeah, resource management and economy, I don't think is in this because I believe this is just about inside of the battle, not the actual wider gameplay.
There we go. We're faster now. Economy. We're gonna add the R for faster. Pig is number one in economy, and I just want to include that. Although you're right, this doesn't necessarily matter in battle, but I don't think that's necessarily true because property values can directly tie to economy, which can directly tie to his in battle performance. But again, I guess it's still relatively separate. That's still more of a overall how that's one of his scaling aspects.
Yes, that's one of the reasons why he has such great stamina, right? Is because he's able to scale. And what force he does have is almost always based on out of game scaling. So it's like having a lot of HP for like a double whammy or a lot of value on a property. Those are his force metrics that he does have.
Yeah, it's actually I think that's what's really funny is his scaling completely flips. It goes from purely in combat scaling to purely out of combat scaling over the course of the game. Because day one, hour one, you want what you really want are the things like Ganjo. And you really I don't think people call it Ganjo. I do because it looks like a banjo but with a G. So Ganjo and like weights. And then as you get later, you tend to just like, oh, I've got a 600, a 200, 600 value. Depends on your doubling. Fixer upper, right? So you don't really need that other in combat scaling as much because you start so strong with all your out of combat scaling. It's another reason I really like Pig. Like the thing with Pig is you pretty much always have to switch out of what you're doing in the beginning. You just can't keep it. I feel like I've played some characters, especially Vanessa, I just keep making my weapon stronger and stronger and stronger. And in Pig, you're like, this stuff is just not gonna win later. Like Ganjo can get you through some days, but like you don't want this on day 11. You don't want it on day 8, 9. It's just too slow.
Definitely. And I would like to make a second column real quick because I
Mhm.
just think for other people, maybe these numbers don't make as much sense. But if we just do like a 1, 2, or 3 out of 3,
Okay.
are you the best? Are you the second best or the third best? Right?
We don't we
That
the
might.
out of 10 makes no sense anyway. We don't need to worry about it. We'll do we'll do economy. Number 1 is the best, right?
Yep.
1 out of 3.
So essentially, you would want a lower number when you add all of these together to be the better hero. So a 6 is pretty good. Now I wonder how balanced we think the other heroes are. Do you want to run those real quick without
Um
talking about them?
yeah, let's not talk about them. Let's just and in fact, I'll give you Vanessa or which one do you want to do more? Vanessa or Dooley?
I'll probably do Dooley.
All right, then I'll do Vanessa. Let's take a look here. Let's do Force. Force, I think Vanessa is I'm going to give her 1. Acceleration. Sorry, 1 out of 3. Acceleration. I'm gonna give her 1 out of 3. I think she's the one with like holsters and instantly have 0-second triggers in combat. She also has Dooley has a lot more like charging mechanics, but I think Vanessa has a lot more hasting mechanics, and she also just Dooley you might have to wait 4 seconds, 5 seconds, and then it all goes. Vanessa sometimes it's just like second 0, you're already dead. Stamina, she's got to be the worst. There's no way that she's not. She's the most reliant on limited use skills and limited use items like ammo. Tankiness, she is easily the worst. Economy, I think she's probably ahead of Dooley in that, even though this is my own thing that I'm adding, but I think it's worth doing it. I think she's definitely behind Pig, but in front of Dooley, she has a little bit of a sub theme of economy with like the pirate chest and stuff, right?
I agree with all of those. I think Cove is a good economy piece, and I think that the issue um, with the tankiness is that she doesn't really have great shield scaling. Well, she does now actually, but it's really only in the aquatic package, and it's like you're not always playing the aquatic package. Um, but yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's easier with Dooley to get ridiculous scaling shield.
All right, there we go. So I mean, we could fill in Dooley.
We don't
I
even have a
guess.
choice, yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be 2 for 3. Vanessa had 7 points, so she's 1 point behind Pig, according to our ratings, of course. And it'll be interesting to see.
And he is 2 out of 3 here. And are we including the R? He's definitely the worst here.
So it's interesting. You know, I might have like flipped for acceleration or whatever, but like outside of that, you know what I mean? Like it's really close. So
there we go. This is what we want.
now
people can see what we're doing.
Oh yeah, perfect. So yeah, 6 points for Pig, making him, you know, at least.
How are you counting
from
up
our
6
opinion?
Because there's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. What are you adding up to be?
That's 9. I just can't count. Is what the issue is.
Okay. So Pig has got 9. The lower the better. The lower the number, the better.
Yes.
Vanessa's got 3, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Yes.
And Dooley's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yep.
So, listen, I don't want to say we're biased, but the Pygcast puts Pig as the best, okay? We put Pig as the best character, and I am biased, but I do think Pig is the best character. But I also can't get results with other characters because I have, if you're watching this for the first time, let's just go ahead and take a look here. Lolliette's is definitely a little more balanced, but if we look here at my career, and we just look at games played, right, I have 258 games as Pig. So this is lopsided. It almost kind of looks like well, never mind. Let's just move on. But that is, that was our first segment. We just kind of wanted to call out the podcast, try to use their little system, not their little, their cute little system. We didn't wanted to just talk about, we wanted to shout them out, basically, was all. But
yeah,
now,
definitely go give them, you know, like and a subscribe or whatever, because they're still like under 100, and that's criminal. So
yeah, from what I've seen and what Laliette has said, they're cool. So now we are going to do a little bit of a fun thing that I thought we would like with the second half of the podcast here. This is we're gonna do an ode to old metas. So I have a list here, and if I organize this by, let's go ahead and sort by name. There we go. So we wanted to kind of go over, we've been playing the game for a while now. Has it been 6 months? Almost?
Yeah.
It's been about 6 months at this point. We kind of wanted to go over the metas that we remember and the metas that, what was like super broken in the past of the game. One, because there's new people that have just joined and may not know how good the game has gotten over time. And two, it's also just kind of nice to, people will be like, oh yeah, I just was talking to someone yesterday, and we'll just jump into number 1 here. They said, oh yeah, I forgot about the skyscraper meta. This is the first meta in the game. Now, again, because of the way the combat works, like, you're not going to see how big these numbers are, right? But skyscraper had a way shorter cooldown. I don't remember. I think it was 6 seconds or something. And then it also had like double value of all your it did damage equal to like 2 times of all your properties, and then, or all your items, and then it also like doubled its own value. But then I think the stained glass window also doubled its value. Point is, there was some math funkiness going on. This thing would get up to like 20,000 damage, and like this was what was common. Like I had a 20,000 damage skyscraper with like a 2-second cooldown, and it is in a multicast, right? So it just go pop pop, let alone if you crit. This was so oppressive that if you got past day 9, it would always, this would be the only thing you would find for a week. Like the first couple days of the game, no. And then I think this build didn't seem as strong as maybe it was at first because people were bad at the game. But even being bad at the game, this was oppressive. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't do anything at past the late game. In fact, the only counterplay was what I was doing, I think, was where you would switch your like really good property out for a fort to make theirs go off at, like, I had mine at 1.7 seconds and I wanted theirs to be at 2.7 seconds. That 1 second difference means you win versus them. It was whatever had the shortest timer was the only thing that mattered. Do you remember this meta? Did you play against it that much or with it?
Yep, I played both with it and against it. Really frustrating to play against, really fun to play. Just too broken, right? This is one of my builds. I don't know why I had that ice hammer, but the ice hammer had like a crazy amount of damage as well. Like,
yeah,
I think
this is so unoptimal. There's no way that this is the right thing. Also, this must have affected all properties instead of like, I guess it always did, but yeah, this is definitely not the best item here. But it was, you'd probably destroy.
And there was some issue with stained glass window where like it was supposed to be doubling or whatever, but it was like 4xing instead. So there's a whole bunch of like snapshotting issues with the multiplication. And yeah, the numbers got real big real fast.
Also, they used to have red envelope in the game. I think they stealth took that out. I don't remember them saying they took it out, but it's definitely gone.
Yeah, they just took it out, right? With the second patch of the open beta.
And actually, one thing I want to do when we get to the end here is we want to say what was the most broken meta ever? What was the one that was most poorly balanced? It might be this. So a second one is, this is not necessarily meta as much as it is a build that has been very good forever, and that is HP Pig. This has always been meta, and it has just never been nerfed. And I don't think this has ever been touched even a little bit. And I think it's really good. This, to this day, from day one, well, maybe not day one of Skyscraper, but basically since the launch until now, this might be the most powerful build in the game. But it's kind of up for debate because it's so hard to actually capitalize on it. So, like, if you want to consider consistency as part of a build's strength, then it's definitely going to take some points. But how many times have you played HP Pig?
Not a ton, maybe 10 times. There's a lot of times where I think I'm playing HP Pig and I just can't scale to the numbers where it's really that. You miss your, I mean, once upon a time, it was Lemonade Stand. Now it's much more probably focused on your pawn shop, right?
So yes, you're absolutely. It's much more focused on pawn shop and belt. So you can see here, this is obviously an early attempt. There's no belt, no pawn shop. This is not a really good HP Pig. What I think that each of these pictures that we got here is supposed to be highlighting something. And I think what this one is really highlighting is how insanely overpowered the old Master of Arms was when you used to be able to start with it, where it's like every time you bought or sold a weapon, you'd get like, I don't know, 40 HP or something. So you would start day one with like 500 HP, and it didn't even matter if you had weapons. They just would, like, Vanessa's would use all their ammo shots and you would just be alive still, you know? So like HP build is viable without any HP support. I'm even using the stupid gavel. What an embarrassment, bro. That's like a 9-second cooldown, and sometimes it hits me.
To be fair, this is a day 10 board, right? Because you went perfect.
That is true. It is a day 10 board with no HP items on it besides the thing. All right. This is what is more. I have 2 more HP pigs basically to show you. And this is like a more standard build. Like, this is exactly kind of what you want still. I would say to this day, this is around what you want. This is day 12. This is pretty good, but you could get like way, way, way stronger than this now, as well.
And you don't really need skills, which is also like an interesting part of this build.
Yeah, you can get skills, but it's really about, yeah, the pawn shop. But now that they've changed scaling and stuff, like you can now get like the ledger, right? And you can add more value. So this is a modern pig build. I'm at 168,000 HP here. This is a one. Master Salesman can drop now. It was not in the game. They said it was, but I swear to God, it was not in the game. It didn't drop in 1,000 times. So I have this is getting doubled by this, and it's doubled itself because it's shiny, and then it's doubling here. So I have 170,000 HP. So you can get to absolutely absurd numbers here. So yeah,
Can we shout out that this is within the last week, right?
yeah, this is within the last, I think, week. So this is
And
super
somebody's
recent.
playing Pierre Conditioner.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there.
Hey, keep up the good work. All right, they didn't have a chance. I'm so sorry. Like they tried. They did a lot of damage to me. I think they got half my health, which is a lot. But I was like, actually, you know what? I did lose on this build because I think they froze my hammer. So it's like one of those builds that is like, it's incredibly strong and it's always been strong. And I think it'll always be strong, but it does have a hard counter, which I think is really fair. But it beats pretty much literally everything that's not exactly freeze, unless they destroy it, I guess. But that's not really a build, destroy.
Yeah, I
So
don't even really know how easy it is to destroy a large item right now.
you have to get the boss item, right? And then trigger it like a, well, if you trigger it once, there's a good chance it just blows it up. This is one that you know and I know nothing about. So first, I kind of wanted to give a shout out to the old item here, the icy globe. When you enchanted this globe, at the start of each day, your freeze items got 1 second to freeze. What motherfucker thought that would be a good idea to put in this game? That is the most broken line of text I think I've ever seen. If you get 0.5 seconds to your freeze items, that's a diamond loot item, and that feels like you just won the game. You're like, oh, 1.5 seconds, they're dead. This is you would get 10-second freezes on your freaking snow globe, bro. Oh my god.
Yes, and also this is back when freeze had the same odds of dropping in an enchantment, like in the 3-pick enchantments,
Oh
as
my
everything
god.
else.
That is
And now
so
that's not the
disgusting.
case
It
at
better,
all.
yeah. I haven't gotten a freeze enchantment in weeks and weeks and weeks. I never see it. But this is freeze dually. There was an infinite freeze dually. Will you tell me about
Yes,
this build?
this is not even a good one, right? But it highlights really well how back when Robot Factory gave plus times 2, so you had multicast 3 on all of your things, and the old Pierre conditioner made it so that every time you use your core or it uses itself, it freezes. And I think he had twice the duration as the core, so it was like maybe 1 second if you use the core and 2 seconds with him. But then of course that scales up at some point. Anyway, the point is, you just need any other friends, and those friends will help, trigger your core, because every time you use them once, it's going to charge 3 seconds. So Walter Cooler was fine here because it didn't really matter, because first Aiden was almost triggering the core by itself, and once the core triggered once, it's going to haste the 2 things next to it, and then once you freeze them with the Pierre conditioner, their board never really unfreezes.
And these skills were all infinite use, right? Or was it the first time?
Yes.
Was this the first time you did something it instantly it triggered, or was it just like every time you used your, I don't remember old coolant leak, which I
Yeah,
think this
it's
is.
hard to say. I think it's been changed twice since. But what I can say is is that the skills didn't really matter. This was an infinite freeze without the skills.
Yeah, it's this was a menace for a while. There's few things that feel worse than getting infinitely froze, and now that I'm 100% a freeze pig main, I don't feel bad at all. Because the thing is about current freeze pig, it's not infinite freeze. Like, you get a chance to use your items. It just like it's still overpowered, I would argue. But like, you get a feel like you might get a chance. But when you're just sitting there, you're just like, it's all frozen, and you just watch the 1 second freeze time on all your items go up to 3 seconds, go up to 4 seconds. You're like, oh, I'm just
My favorite part of this was, while this was still running rampant, that they made a small nerf, right? To be able to like make it so that it couldn't go infinite, right? So there had to be a lapse. I shouldn't say small nerf, but they made a nerf. And then when he was reading the patch notes, Reynad said, I didn't want to change freeze. I don't think there's anything wrong with freeze. I think it's perfect the way it is. But they made the change anyway. So
Yeah,
it's just
because
hilarious to look at how freeze is today and compare it to this point in time where Vanessa also had an infinite freeze combo that was harder to hit, and Pig had an infinite freeze combo that was harder to hit. This was the easiest, I think, out of the three to hit.
yeah, I don't remember how they changed freeze. I remember thinking remembering how I wanted them to change it, but I'm not sure what they actually did. Do you remember?
I believe that they reduced the amount of time that things were freezing
Yeah,
for,
pretty much
and
everything's
then
baseline 1 second or 2 seconds now, right? Like I think things were like
yeah,
5 seconds, 6 seconds.
and there used to be way more free skills during this meta, and
Hmm.
which over the patches have been slowly weeded out. And then with the most recent patch, now there are no at start effects to freeze or whatever. It's when you first use an item, which you can still trigger with like a Chimera or whatever. But yeah.
I kind of hope they change Chimera still. I don't like second zero effects in general. Um,
Although it might not be a use effect. Is Chimera a use effect? I don't know.
yeah, I think it is used. Maybe if it just slowed, but wasn't. No, because even the slow triggers like first time you slow an item. Yeah, I mean, look, it's whatever. I'm just complaining. I just don't like second zero items as a pig player who has. I have nothing fast. All right, so we got Crit Vanessa. The main reason we were highlighting this, I'll let you talk about the build because I've never really played it, is that daggers used to proc themselves. So
Yes, they sure did. So this is a single dagger version, right? But you get the start haste at the beginning, and we also have the freeze at start, and we also have the slow at start. Um, and yeah, so we're just abusing a bunch of at start effects. We're gonna freeze people, we're gonna slow them, and then we're going to have our crit knife trigger itself like a bajillion times for a lot of damage. Well, it will only trigger itself as much ammo as you have, but of course we have. Is that double damage on your large epic weapons now? But it used to be double damage on all your weapons, I believe. That cannon,
ooh,
the
yeah,
diamond cannon.
I think you're right. Glass cannon. It's either double damage or it was like plus. Yeah, I think it might have been double.
Yeah,
Um,
it was double damage back then, I believe. But around the same time that we had the skyscraper meta, this was also a build, but it just wasn't as good. So as soon as skyscraper got hit, all of a sudden this was the only thing that like would beat everybody on the meta. So it was a very unbalanced time. And as soon as anything would get hit, there would just be a new build ready to just absolutely dominate the meta.
a few things I just want to mention is that we're not going to go over every single like insanely broken build. Like they had especially during this time, there was a lot of things that kind of the second something got touched, it got broken. We're kind of go over the stuff we played, but there was like there there was also a time around here where it was like you had this infinite looping, like, oh, if you burn, the burn triggers this, and then this triggers the item that burns. So there was a lot of infinite loops, especially when you got enchantments involved, and they've pretty much cut all of that out over the time because most things don't trigger anymore. Now things will, when something happens, charge a second, and it's you have to work really hard to make it so the charging can pass the. In fact, most items you can't, but like there's certain items you can make the charge
Oh,
bigger than the
and this
cooldown.
is back when there was no internal cooldown, right?
Yeah, you're
So
right. So
well,
that
I
was
think there was for most items, but there was a bucket of items where it did not matter. So the
dagger
big
was
issue
one of
with the
them.
crit knives at the time is when it fired once, it would fire every single ammo. So
Yeah.
because it had 100% crit and it was use this every time you crit. So I think this build actually has like 200% crit or something. But anyway, you get the idea. So it goes off once. I think I might have 7 ammo on this build, so it triggers 7 times. All of them crits, all at the second zero of the battle.
This is where the stamina Vanessa is bad. This is 100 force, 100 acceleration, 0 stamina. You know, it's like because if they survive that first hit, sometimes you get the skill like every time you crit reload a weapon, but if you didn't have that, you'd just be like I have 9,642 damage. Damn it. Or instantly dead. I have a hard time believing I remember playing the game and having fun. I'm surprised because the game is so much better now than it used to be, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. Is the game is just continues to be so much better. If you look at where it was, which is why we're doing this in the first
Yeah.
place.
Do you know how many times I was trying to play Infinite Daggers at second 0, but I would be Infinite Daggers at second 1, and I would play 3 at 0 Vanessas that would just destroy me, and I would get like 6 wins. You know what I mean? So it's just like
Where it's all
that is
about
not
who
healthy.
slightly high rolled a little bit more and broke the interaction just a little bit more. Yeah, where it's like the game loads in, you see like all the cards reveal, and then it's boom, it's over. Next, more pillaging, less pillaging. I don't know what she says. I never listen to her. She doesn't shut up. No, I don't like Vanessa's voice lines. I'm kind of hit and miss on most of the voice lines, but that's not what we're talking about. Pygmalion, I'm just sick of hearing, not all Jabalians are pacifists. You see my tusks? I'm like, shut up, Pygmalion. All right.
My girlfriend is so tired of hearing defeat does not defeat me.
You just believe you'll win, and you will, but not against me. I hope they add voice lines as paid cosmetics, because I will absolutely give me Rick and Morty voice lines. I don't care. I don't even want that, but I'll take it. So this is a whole genre of builds. This was I put this one here because I had a 500,000 shielding, right? That's quite a bit. Things used to be so crazy, and they're still crazy, but the whole game is definitely weaker than it was, especially with the bonketing. But this is basically highlighting these 3 items here. These 3 items were always broken and always together. Yo-Yo activated. It didn't charge. You could say it charged 4, I guess. If it has a 4-second cooldown, it had a 4-second charge. But every time you used an adjacent item, you used the Yo-Yo. Every time, the bird, I think they gave away... Yeah, look at this. Bird used to have 2 multicast per property. Do you remember that? Holy crap. Bird is so good now.
Yeah, it was possible to get it to 9.
The bird is good now. The bird had 2 multicast for every property. So it's at X5 with 2 properties. And Bushel, I think it was every time you heal, you shield, right? It was every time you heal, you get
every time you shield, you heal.
And it must be the opposite, right? Because I have healing yo-yos here. And it says 3,000 shield, right?
Well, no, it triggers itself.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Point is, these 3 items were so broken together, it didn't matter what you did. This is just what you did. This is what you had, and the rest didn't matter. You can see here, like, she almost killed me, right? You could see that she probably had, like, the infinite daggers, and I'm at 8,400 HP, right? So I probably was at, like, 30,000 HP. So she almost killed me, and then I just went infinite. But look how powerful.
And you also have a skill that I believe is every time they use a weapon, you get more shield. So they did like infinite daggers, and you got infinite shield.
It's this is all kind of like, obviously it's only day 12, by the way. I feel like this is pretty strong for day 12. But yeah, this is even 1 weapon Vanessa was still good back then too, but that one was definitely a little more insane. So that one, there's a bunch of those that are like that, and you're gonna see that repeated in these next few ones. So next up is the B build. This is, I don't know if you guys remember, but I don't know if it was when Beehive was initially in the game. Did they add it after the fact? Because I feel like there was a point where Beehive was in the game, no one used it, and then there was a switch, and they made it so I think they actually just had it how it is currently, where bees activate every time someone uses a weapon. But now, when they switched it, bees activated whenever they used an item. Any item, all the bees, if you had a beehive out, all your bees would activate. This was caltrops. You could now run 6 caltrops. Now, also, yo-yos, because of the way they used to trigger, they would just trigger each other. If you had 2 yo-yos, you had an infinite loop immediately. That means the first second anyone used an item, my yo-yos would infinitely loop, start infinitely getting scaling, and also poison them a bunch. And if they kept using items, the bees would also kill them. And there's also a diamond coolant link. I'm sure that, like, this is, no build I have today would beat this. I don't think my strongest build, well, I don't know, maybe a good cold room. Cold room is designed to stop this infinite stuff, but I think the bees might kill us still. But bees this is the bee meta. We have one more here from Laliette. And you can see here, the bee meta is so strong. This has a fucking silver, stupid money tree here. Doesn't need to be here at all. You remove this, I bet you win the same amount. You just have Beehive and bees. These are all caltrops. This is we're going to talk about cargo shorts, but this is a cargo shorts change. We read it in the patch notes. We're like, that was stupid. What are you thinking? There's no way this isn't insanely broken. Whoever did the change to cargo shorts did the change to Beehive. There's someone in their in that team that doesn't play the game. They're just a flavor guy. They're like, yeah, but every time you try to do something, you get stung by a bee. Why is it just weapons? That doesn't make sense. And then no, it slipped through. I don't know how. So what do you remember the bee meta? Obviously, you did at least one game.
Yeah, I played a lot of bees. I feel like I was the one who really pushed the bees on you because I think you were already winning with Pig, you know what I mean? Where you were like, I don't need to play these bees. And then I started showing you like things like this, and you're like, all right, that's a horrible board. And he really beat everybody. So it's like there was way better boards than this. You didn't have to just have a million bees, but of course a million bees were pretty good.
Yeah, like
And they went back and forth between like it only being weapons, being all items. Then they brought it back to weapons, I believe, and then they took it out of the game for a couple months. And then when they brought it back, it was like reworked slightly. And I don't know if it's still the same rework it was, right? Because like right now,
so
each bee.
I can tell you exactly how they changed it.
All right, go ahead.
Bees, when they brought it back, or before they took it away, rather, they switched it so it was only weapons. But it would activate a random bee. When your opponent uses a weapon, activate a random bee. They removed it, they added it back in, and now it charges all bees like 2 seconds. So now you are incentivized to use multiple bees because it'll charge all your weapons. It still only works on weapons, and I'm telling you, people don't use weapons. You should not be using bees. There's like single weapon Vanessa sometimes. Like if you go up against a flagship, like you feel smart. Everything else, I'm like, where's all your weapons, man? There's nothing here. You go up against a pig, they're not gonna have weapons. Your whole build gets countered by it's very weak right now. If it was non-weapons, I think it could be a good item, but because every build runs some non-weapons. Even with weapons, you want non-weapons to like do stuff. But yeah,
I do like the thematic that when you attack the hive, right, the bees attack.
Yes.
So I thought that was cool.
I think the weapons make more thematic sense. I think it's too weak of I still think it's a weak item. It just like it's like a meta call. If everyone is using 10 weapon Vanessa, or with the new item that makes like, or they're using Crook Pig, like this could probably beat Crook Pig. Like this kicks Alotto's butt, bro. If they're strong enough. If they have an Alotto that's 1,000 power, it probably doesn't. What did I do? That I got Windows 10. Remind me later. Hey Windows. Okay, so this is gonna be this is kind of following. You're gonna see a theme here. This is back when Yo-Yo and Bird were insanely strong, but this is actually after they nerfed Bird. So you can see Bird only has 3 multicast. This is mostly highlighting how insanely powerful. I believe Yo-Yo is still broken here, by the way, because I don't think I would run this if it wasn't. But this is highlighting every time you used an item, Landscraper would give you shield. This item is so different now in the sense that it is completely unusable trash. Vineyard is unusable trash. This is borderline unusable trash. There are sometimes you're going up against another pig and you have a big skyscraper or a big a big fixer-upper, and this just becomes 10 costs of your fixer-upper, right? Because your fixer-upper will give this 6,000 value, and then this shields you for 1,000,000 times over 100 seconds. It takes forever. It's a terrible item, but I have one because of this one time in my 100, 200 games. But it used to be busted, bro. This item, every time you use an item, this gives you shield based off its shield. So you use this 3 times, this every 2 seconds. This gives you, it didn't have an active at all. It was only a triggered item. And so every time I use the Yo-Yo, it would get shield, it would give shield, it would shield. I'm using 9 items here. I'm using 9 slots, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's an open slot. And this is 10 wins. I just flexed. I wanted to do 9 because I'm like, there's not a one. This is all you needed. This was insane. And this is exactly like the second build here. But you're going to see, like, again, it's the Bird, the Yo-Yo. And this must be old Bird, 2, 4, 5. So this is actually before the Bird got nerfed. So they must have been around the same time. But Vineyard was the same thing, but for healing. It just triggered a bunch. Now, the only difference is
use weights.
Yes, is this build uses weights instead of the shield to basically convert the healing into damage. But I don't know which build is stronger. I guess it kind of depends. This made the Yo-Yo get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and your healing gets stronger and stronger. but the shield was kind of more like up front because you would just get a bunch of shielding right away and then hit them really hard. They're different, but they're the exact same. Like this doesn't need to be here. This could also be a 9-item build. But you can see here, this is kind of the core, right? And I think they kind of reworked Bushel by this point already. Because Bushel could make it in this build, but I don't think it was worth giving up 2 multicasts on a bird to run a Bushel almost ever. But once it went down to 1 multicast, I think it kind of did it. Did you play this much Pig when they had the vineyard and stuff going on, the vineyard landscaper scraper?
Yes, and you turned me on to the landscaper is really what you were playing, and then I kind of fell more for the vineyard, but they were both awesome, and we would both play them interchangeably. It kind of just depends on which one you found.
There was a brief moment where I don't know if I shared the picture or not, but where it's like landscraper and vineyard both triggered with bees. Bees were used. They weren't triggered. Like they were stronger than caltrops. Caltrops, they were smaller than caltrops, but also caltrops was a triggered ability. When they attack something, they take damage. Bees got instantly used. So when you got instantly used, you would instantly use your vineyard and you would use your subscraper or landscraper. So it was actually it was broken, but it was more broken than I think people remember.
And bees had a built-in scaling with their hive, right? So every time you
Yes.
bought a property, they would get stronger. Caltrops, you have to actually work a lot harder to get more damage on it.
The only time you don't need to put an effort into caltrops is when you're doing a crook build, which is our next one here. This is a bad crook build, by the way, but this is still highlighting how strong Yo-Yo was. And also, sorry, 2 things: how strong Yo-Yo was, and crook used to hit everything. So this burns equal to its damage, so it's like a flamethrower, but it's small. But crook used to apply to everything. Now it only applies to medium items, so you got to be much more picky about what you're using. It not applying to Yo-Yo is probably one of the best changes. Crook has been nerfed 3 times, 4 times, and it's still.
I think 4, yeah.
I don't think it's too good, but it is still too good silver gold on before day 6. Like you go up against a crook and before like probably day 5, I'm still just like, their stuff still has hundreds of damage and they're but it's not as strong as it was, not even close. But I had a double crook build and I didn't get 10 wins with it. So crook is probably in a good spot now. But
yeah, and we also want to throw out there, this is the strongest crook there ever was. This is like November meta, so I don't remember exactly how much it buffed everything by. It might have been 120, like I don't really remember, but it's the strongest buff that it gave, and of course it gave that to the Yo-Yo, which upon use would use of either of the 2 things next to it would trigger.
Few things to highlight here. This is 10 wins, no Adlotl. Adlotl is clearly the best crook item. It's also 15,000 HP with nothing. It's just this master. I think it was still this here. It's still the arms merchant, where it was actually absurd how much it gave you. And then obviously arc. This is still a really good skill. I think it gives you 40 shield every time you use an item. That's still really good with Yo-Yo in general. So
and Diamond Heart, right? Like that's plus 300, I believe, HP for each diamond you have. So you have 4 of those.
I think yeah. They now have there's such some of the I really think currently gold skills are too strong to start with. Like every time I see what is on offer, like I had this skill just today where it was like you get 200 HP per non-weapon item. I had like it was day 1. I had like 1400 HP or something, and I was like, it was probably not 1400, but it was like I had at least like I think I had 4 non-weapon items. I put a spare coin for 200 HP. Right? I was like, all right, I had 2, 4, 6, 800 more HP than them. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that kind of stuff is I still think those skills are too strong. Crook was kind of insane. But this is you have a lot to teach me here because I didn't play this even once. The Puffer build.
Yes. So Puffer has been problematic for the entirety of the game until open beta. So if you only started playing in open beta, then you might think this is like a balanced card. But way back in the day, this had like a 6-second cooldown and charged like 1 or 2 seconds for every haste. So you would get a fishing rod, and you would just hope you'd get as many haste triggering aquatic items throughout your run. So this is just a run where I got 3 jellyfish. So when you use an adjacent aquatic item, then it will haste, right? And so all 3 of them are going to haste every time you use an adjacent item. We have the life preserver, so when we die, we get like, I don't know, 1600 health or something back. And then the far left item, every time you use a non-weapon item, it will charge, or no, sorry, it would haste one non-weapon item for 1 or 2 seconds. I don't remember exactly. So the other thing is, this doesn't show, but that's probably like a 20-ish 20 to 25-ish poison
But
puffer fish.
that's right,
So
because you
it was
used to get
basically,
a lot of loot items, like a lot of monster loot was like kind of unregulated, right? You can get like, I forgot how you got so many of them before, but there used to be a
well,
way to get a bunch.
this is before that. So
Okay.
2025 was really just like putting a lot of energy and intention into it, and you would definitely grab a lot of monster loot when you could. There's a meta after this where that number would be like 50 or 60.
Damn. Okay.
But but yeah, so, and there was also an issue where when you would enchant this thing with fire, it would break the internal cooldown if you were using certain items like trebuchet or
You're
something
right.
like that.
I remember that, just seeing the shorts of just like, you couldn't even see what's going on the screen. It was just, it looked like it was pissing on him, pissing blood and stuff. It was nasty. I assume this is when we were still starting with gold skills, because I don't assume you would have gotten this after the run started. You probably started with this on your build.
Yep.
Pufferfish has been a problem all the way up until now, pretty much. Up until like 2 weeks ago. It has been, every time they nerfed it, it wasn't enough. And they nerfed this item a lot. They probably have nerfed this more than Crook. They
And I
also,
would dare say, that the reason we no longer have items that don't charge, right? You remember when everything wasn't charges, it was
it was
something else. I
everything
don't really.
everything triggered. It would, like, when you did this thing,
Yes,
then this activates. But they
exactly.
basically, like the bonkening, they did they removed basically triggers from everything, and they made it now charge when you do something as opposed to just get used. Um, that was a
And it
huge
was
change
still
into the
broken
game.
after that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they all scaled. They all went 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, and stuff like that. And then they eventually removed all of that. Now they just have 1 second pretty much always, except for yo-yo, which is the exception that goes up to 3 seconds, I think, or it goes up to 4 seconds on a 5 second cooldown. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this little piece of shit right here is ended. He's caused free to play players to cry right there. Fuck you, pufferfish. I hate you. All right. This is more lolly yet. This might have been
All
when I
right.
was taking a break. Oh my god, this is so gross to look at. All right, you tell me. I see a
So
repeater and 2 knives.
this is post nerf to the whole issue with the crit knives, where instead of it being every time you crit, it was moved to a charge, I believe. So this is now you had
Wasn't
to
it
crit
another
3.
item has to crit? Wasn't it like when you crit with a different item, it just excluded itself? Or was that a different change? They might have reworked it a few times.
There was multiple changes. I'm
Yeah.
not sure at which part we are right now. But at one point, I believe you had to crit 3 times. So I think that's what this build was trying to do. Because once you could get the 3 crits on either knife, then you basically would go infinite. But you had to have 2 knives. And I think you're right. It might just be another item, but it could be the same item, right? So this build, I think, is when you crit, it automatically uses itself again, but it has to be a different item. So one knife would still trigger the other knife, which is
Mm-hmm.
silly. And there was a decent amount of ways to get another knife. One of them is port, and that was probably the most reliable way to do it. And then later, after Plat left, the degenerate thing to do with port was you would get freeze potions,
Oh
and
my
you would
god.
just like perma freeze your opponent, and you would always recharge the 1 ammo on the freeze. You'd get like 2 freeze potions, and then you would just kill them with your other items.
That might be what got me to leave. I remember facing so many Vanessas with so many freeze potions. I was like, how are they always dropping? I didn't realize port dropped items because I just haven't really played with it. But I do remember there was a time where you had to have repeater. You could do other things with enchantments and stuff, but repeater activated every time you use an ammo item. and this activated every time you crit with a different item. So if you can make the repeater guaranteed to crit, then it would infinitely use all the ammo for all of them. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, the game used to be so broken. Like in terms of like, I still had fun, and you had to put this stuff together, but I always feel like I have a fighting chance outside of day 15. Like sometimes you go in right now and someone has a 60K. I went up with someone, they had a 45,000 heart of the city, with armor. I don't even know why it had that much, but whatever. And then they one shot me for because they crit. It was 80,000 damage. I was like, yeah, it's easy. One thing I wanted to share here is I found this in the game one time. I think I must have went to. I'm playing Pygmalion, believe it or not. I'm playing Pygmalion here. I think I got this from just going to like the port and like getting a random weapon, and it just pulled this debug flagship multicast test into my inventory. So I had this on a real run. You can see day 9. I'm not doing very well. In fact, this is probably my last day. I think I lose here. But this has a 1.1 second cooldown. This, I believe, is baseline. I think I don't have any cooldown reduction at all. It might have been like 2 seconds, and I might have some sort of cooldown. But if I remember, this was baseline. And I had it in a real game. I don't know how I got it, but I thought it was just like a fun. I don't know. I thought it was fun.
There was a time when you pulled other classes items that some of the items just weren't properly coded, and this is a great example of some of the things that could go wrong. I never got this, but Platt did it, I think, twice, but he this is the one that we had a screenshot of.
To be fair, Vanessa never got it either. If they changed this weapon, they give this to Vanessa, I have no doubt that she's the best character in the game. All right, so this is old Freeze. The modern Freeze is different, but old Freeze, this was the shit. This was very powerful for a couple reasons. One, honestly, this item sucks. It always did. You ran this because it freezes, not because it's good. I think it did get. I don't remember if it's been reworked or not. It was mostly about this. This just kind of froze a lot of stuff, but really it was Booby Trap. Booby Trap used to be a non-active item, so it didn't have a charge. But every time you used a property, it would slow something. So modern Freeze Pig is pretty different, where you're scaling stuff. You're getting a bunch of regen, you're getting a bunch of burn, and then you're killing them with freeze to basically help slow them down. But this was purely permanent freeze. You can see this is an 8-win silver, right? I didn't save a lot of these. That we definitely had lots of 10 wins. But you could be countered, right? If they just killed you before you went, you wouldn't get anything. But once it went off, you would permanently freeze their stuff, and they would just never get to go. And you would literally win by beating them down just a little bit at a time and shielding up to survive the sandstorm. So it was very, very broken at the time, although it could be countered. Again, if they had one radiant item, you're like, no, no, they have a radiant item. My build. No, this is bull crap. I can't believe they're using freeze potions on Vanessa. I think I lost to a freeze potion. I'm like, that's not your job. All right, this is another Lolliette build here. Tell me about Monitor Lizard.
So this is, I was actually playing Monitor Lizard before the big 6-week patch, right during the Christmas time. The deplayering, where so many players left like Platt did, because you got beat down by like 2 builds, right? It was like a poison or a burn build, Dooley or Vanessa. That's really what everybody was doing.
The Dooley Apocalypse.
And the real issue was that they decided to make loot items way more available, and they also made them, I don't know, maybe they're just more available, but the numbers seemed higher back then. I don't know if that's accurate. Like the amount of poison you would get from like a bronze or a silver item, like silver now is 1, and I feel like back then it was more.
There's no way. But yeah, I think it was more than 1.
No matter what it was, you could get enough of these loots over the course of your run where like 51 poison was not a ridiculous thing. So I was playing it before they did the charge thing. So back when it was a passive effect, right? So every time you would haste, it would poison or whatever, and you couldn't get that much poison on it, but it could do a lot of damage over time. Then all of a sudden they did the charging, right? Where like I think it was December 6th or something. Everything got moved from passive effects to charging, other than like 3 items. One of those items I think was Monitor Lizard.
For some reason,
That didn't make
that was one
the
that
cut.
didn't make the cut. I think it was not changed, right?
Yeah, because it's still passive, it's unbelievably broken, but it just gets way more broken when instead of having 10 poison over the course of a run, you can get 51.
Yeah, it's a couple things I want to highlight here, just like things that were different than they are now. Is this fire enchantment gave 2 fire, right? Fire enchantment is way stronger now. All the enchantments are more like 1-to-1, right? They're just more powerful. Companion core used to haste everything and get charged with everything. This was the only core, which I'm actually happy they changed. This was the core that didn't require positioning ever. There was no positioning requirement with this item. It was just, I mean, you could use the dual core setup, which was a meta for a while, but as long as you use the friend, it would charge this, and then this would haste all your friends. And when it hasted all your friends, it would trigger this. It's just a dually 101 infinite loop. But I do want to give a shout out to Race Carl, who has not been meta ever. I think really like top tier meta until like potentially right now. He is actually like in the meta as being pretty oppressive. Not oppressive, maybe that's strong, but he is definitely very real right now.
Yeah. He was impressive back then. In this particular meta with the burn and the poison. One thing I do want to shout out is that far left skill, the diamond one, with the pistons.
Mhm.
For the longest time, that never had a limit of 5 or 10. That
Oh
was
yeah.
just every single time, right? So that was crazy. Same thing really with the freeze one. Every single time you use your core, freeze. And which is the one immediately to the right of it, right? And then if you go over to that poison-looking snail, that is your slowest. Your slowest poison item gets plus poison, which it was just another way to get more poison onto items. So I'm glad that that was reworked as well.
And also look how many poison skills you have. This was the dually apocalypse. Okay. Now we are moving past the dually apocalypse, which is open beta, basically. No, actually, before open beta, there was a
Yes,
time
before open beta.
I don't remember exactly when this happened, honestly, but there was during the dually apocalypse. I think I was still playing here though, because I remember them nerfing Armadillo, but Armadillo was the most powerful item in the game for 2 weeks, probably, a normal patch cadence, because it used to trigger. Again, this is before they got triggers off of everything. It used to trigger every time you shielded. Every time you shielded, it would trigger. So I think it just went infinite with duct tape, like straight away. Maybe it didn't quite work that easily because that sounds absurd. But what was really important also is that Armadillo didn't have the internal cooldown mechanic for some reason. At least Bunker could break it. So what you would do
Yes.
with Armadillo, you would feel like you're doing okay. Maybe you're winning, maybe you're losing. But if the sandstorm came and that you got through their shield and the sandstorm started hitting dually, Armadillo had infinite like activations because think about every tick of the sandstorm, every individual tick would trigger Bunker. Bunker used to give you shield equal to like, I don't know, some percent of the damage you took. So every tick of the sandstorm would give you at least one shield, and then Armadillo would activate. So you would go from like the build being powerful to suddenly going, brah! It would just like a Kamehameha spirit bomb would instantly blow you up. You could beat this build sometimes, but if you ever let the sandstorm touch Dooley's HP, it was like a nuclear bomb went off in your face and you never had a chance. I would have loved to have seen two Dooleys fighting each other with that though.
Yes, and I'm not sure if which Armadillo this is because they actually did a crazy thing where Armadillo was broken but not really overly played.
Mhm.
But I had a lot of success with it before the patch, and then they did the cooldown thing, and then he got more broken, and then he was oppressive. But before he was too broken, he would scale off of your every time you'd shield, he would get damage as well, right? So
Mhm.
he would just become something that could hit for 2,000 damage or whatever. And like I said, I don't remember which one this is, but in both metas, if you could give it the shield enchant, it was unbelievably crazy.
This was another one of those kind of similar to bees where people almost day one knew exactly how powerful this was. and it just, at least like when the Armadillo would instantly trigger, like it didn't take an hour for people to like be like, when's the next patch? You know, this one I don't believe they were hot fixed. I think they waited till the next big patch to adjust it. Um, it, I remember not loving the game at that point, but I mean, I don't think it was terrible. So we have the pay to win. All right. This is open beta. This is now a
Day
pretty
one.
this is day one open beta. This is old cold room. Everything here is the same as it was. Actually, no, there's two things that are different here. That is insane and it's awesome. But this was so strong. Cold room got nerfed like it's like 1/4 as strong as it was. And I still think it's one of the Pig's best items, if not his best item. But this used to be coming at bronze, which is absurd already. And then it had a 2-second shorter cooldown at 8 seconds instead of 10 seconds. And they basically just upshifted it. So what it does now at silver, gold, and diamond, it instead did at bronze, silver, and gold. And then there was a diamond version that was even more powerful than the current diamond version. So it was instantly broken. Also, luge was different. It was very, very similar, but because it still freezes adjacent items and gives cooldown, but it used to just freeze adjacent items. And the rest of the text was when adjacent items get freeze, lower their cooldown. So it wasn't tied to its trigger. So if your hot springs went off and froze all your items, it would get an additional cooldown reduction. If your stopwatch went off and they froze them, if they froze you, this would all lower the cooldown. And especially with if there's anything else freeze, it basically made your cooldowns go down to a second very quickly if you're going up against freeze. So whoever had this in the freeze matchup would always win. This was absurdly broken. I went, I think 4-10 wins back to back in one day, and they were not like long runs. It was like, I don't know if they were perfect victories, but they were not going late. It was like, day 11, day 12, 10 wins. They also nerfed, I believe, the scaling on this. I think they went from 3, 6, 9, 12 to like 2, 4, 6, 8, something like that. But the other stuff here is pretty much the same. So
I do want to shout out that that day one of open beta, there were some payment issues with the servers and stuff. So Platt's sending me these screenshots of him paying to win, just smacking people around, and I'm over here like, those cards don't exist for me, even though I have money and I want to pay. It just doesn't work.
I have one video on the channel of day one. I think it might have been my very first run, and I was like, oh my god. I actually almost lost, but then once it clicked hard because I was trying to force it and it didn't come naturally. But this is, again, pre-patch cold room. This is so strong. One, I cannot believe I'm running Igloo here. I am much better at playing this game now. But this is so strong that the keys became a good item. Like, that's how strong this is, that it's like, oh, every 11, or this is at 9 seconds, you just trigger any of these. It's really good. This is, I think, Pig, for a very short amount of time here, was it 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that? He had like an infinite freeze potential build here. Because I think they always froze for 1 second, but it would just trigger so much. It would freeze 4 items instead of 3 items. It would freeze 4 items and give you 15 regen for each of them. This one's also heavy, which is bad, but it's okay. Okay. Next is the 24-hour glorious win. This is when this pay to win instantly flipped on its head and became pay to lose. The 24-hour where we had cargo shorts. I don't know who did this, but they probably did the bees. They probably did Armadillo. I don't know. There's like been a few egregious, absolutely bonkers, powerful things, and almost nothing has been as powerful as cargo shorts. So I have the do I have the picture for cargo shorts? I don't think I have it here. Let me pull up Laliette.
I do want to bring up that I just realized that I did not shut off the frozen assets pack while we were playing the cargo shorts, or as some people call them, the jorts meta. So I had extra items in my pool that I didn't want to see.
I didn't turn it off either. You currently can't see Laliette. He's still here, but I'm just using this in Discord just so we could look at this. This is what cargo shorts did for, it's not quite 24 hours. I think it was like 23 hours, but they were like, we're going to hot fix this in 1 hour. And then they're like, we went home. We'll be back tomorrow. And I was like, yes, let's go. And so Europe, all this is pretty much the same. It actually got buffed in this regard, but that part doesn't matter. Your apparel have minus 5% cooldown for each type this has. So you can see here, I had a 60% cooldown on all of my apparel items. And not only that, you know what else is an apparel? Our good boy, not that one. Do I have all these pictures open? Hopefully not. Our good boy Beast of Burden here. This was not a long fight. You can take a look at this board and tell me what's broken. All right. Is it the fact that I froze 8 things for, maybe? Is it the fact that 96, by the way, is not a lot of burn with the matchbox? That thing goes crazy. 16,630 damage, 45 activations of Beast of Burden. And it's only 45 because they died before he could finish his. This means realistically, this is like 3 activations or 4 activations, right? Because he was activating 13 times per activation. And so he was probably in the middle of his 4th activation. And this was at like 3 seconds. This was like a 3-second cooldown Beast of Burden. Because I think at this point, I think I got it up to 70% with more types. Absolutely unbelievably broken. And the thing is, it was so good that it made Tusked Helm good. If you didn't get Beast of Burden, you could still use Tusked Helm. You could still use jewelry. You could use anything that was apparel and still be very strong. But obviously, Beast of Burden was not even the high roll. It was the best. Absolutely bonkers item in this period of time. Probably the biggest balance mistake I could think of.
There was people who were able to get this down to like 1.2 seconds that I saw. So it's like it was kind of just absolutely insane how fast this item could be, and you could haste it even when you got it down to these low periods. Yeah.
I think I read this in the patch notes and I was like, I didn't even read any further. I was like, this ain't gonna last. I didn't know if it would, I thought maybe it would last 2 weeks until I played it once and I was like, this is not lasting 2 weeks. Because initially we're like, all right, how much are you gonna get? 25%? I don't know, maybe. Then I played, I'm like, I'm at like 60, 65, 70% consistently. I'm like, that is too high. That is simply too high. So that was a great time to be a pig main. There's been a lot of good times to be a pig main. So we are now past all of the stuff in the past. We are now currently at today. What is good today? So DJ Roomba is finally not just playable, but good. Like really good? What happened?
He's really good, yeah. So you can play this with Robotics Factory. You can play this with Ballista. You can play this with Race Carl. You can play this with just 8 nanobots. There's so many ways that this build is powerful, and just the fact that you can have nanobots that are doing 100 or more damage at 4 seconds, as long as they have a friend adjacent, right, is crazy. Like, 4 seconds is so fast nowadays, right? After the bonkening, it's just too fast.
That's Katana. Katana used to be 3 seconds, right? Before the bonkening?
It is 3 seconds, yeah.
Okay, it was at 2 seconds before. So, I mean, it's like, they are very fast. This is the new companion core, by the way. I think they're going to nerf this. I think the fact that this DJ is better than your companion core is not going to stick around. So I think you should enjoy it while you can. By the way, I think this build would kick my butt, by the way, because you destroy my small items. Suddenly my matchbox is gone. I'm like, wait. I'm going to lose to this build. This is very strong. It's if I see the DJ, I'm a little worried, but I don't think it's quite caught on yet to be oppressive. But I think that will change over the course of the next week or two.
Yeah, I've already started seeing it a ton. I actually made a post on Reddit today because I faced the fake Crip, the one spelled with a C. But it was for my 10th win, and we played the exact same build. It was on the far left, we both had like a race Carl, and then we had all nanobots, and then on the far right, we had a DJ hero, right? So I do think he had a ballista, and I didn't realize that until after I made the post because I did a recap, and we both had the enchantment for healing on both of
Yep.
these guys. So there's just big numbers for damage and healing over the picture of the card. But yeah, I'm seeing it a lot more now.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's is it the most powerful build in the game right now? I think there's a real chance that it is. I don't know yet. I'm getting a lot of 10 wins and I'm not coming up against this that much. But I think it is, like you said, catching on, but I think it's catching on with good players, not with the overall community yet. Um, but this would be the most
Yeah.
free to play. This is definitely the most free to play good build, I think, right now. Single weapon Vanessa is really good too. Maybe she might be the best. I think all three characters have very, very viable builds. Pigs is the only one that's pay to win. I think, like, objectively. Um,
Yes, and I like that no matter the core you have, you can take the core out and play this.
yeah.
That's one of the complaints that I've had is when you get a core, a bad core, a core you don't want to play, most of the time taking the core out just makes you worse. Especially the early days, you have no choice because you sacrificed a certain amount of gold and resources because you are Dooley, right? And they
Mhm.
made it so Dooley gets less gold and less income. Um, the one thing I would say is I think this is the strongest build like day 1 to 7, right? Maybe you can't hit this day one because I don't know if Sylvia is still in day one, but at least day two, right? Day 2 to 7, strongest build you can play, and it's still ridiculously powerful by day 10.
Yeah, definitely something you should be playing if you're playing dueling. This is definitely a goal. Now I have three versions of the same build for Pig, but they're all different enough in different ways. I don't know which one is the most powerful, but I play a lot of Pig. So this is a modern Pig kind of build. Although this is the one that I wasn't specifically going to highlight, but I did want to highlight Cash Cannon is currently, if you get it gold, the most powerful it's been. Not that they've changed anything, but money just comes a little bit easier than it used to. They've increased the cost of things, like skills cost 40 gold for like certain diamond ones and stuff like that. And I felt like there's a lot of ways to spend money, but they've added more easy access to truffles. Although I'll admit, when truffles used to be broken the way they were more powerful. But I'm getting a lot of money. So Cash Cannon quickly scales out of control. But what I want to highlight here is that Fort plus Cold Room. And honestly, this item is one of the most broken items in the game, the Hot Springs. It's called the Private Hot Springs, because Hot Springs is a other item. Um, Fort gives Cold Room multicast. This makes Cold Room better than pre-nerf because it does twice as much. You could argue that it's not better because it never gets to that 15 regeneration, but it is insanely powerful. Honestly, I think so. Let's take a look what the other versions I have are. Basically, yeah, this is the build I had today. Actually, this was today's build. Fort plus Cold Room, very, very strong. Honestly, Fort plus Cold Room plus anything that's slow is very strong because it just, when you're making all their stuff slower and you're making your stuff slower, but your stuff all gets multicast, it is so hard to beat that. There are some things that can, but it no matter what build you're going up against, it slows them down unless it's an allottal. That's the one thing that it'll still at a certain damage still be 1 seconds. Um, but stopwatch with Cold Room, absolutely busted. This is one thing I want to highlight about Cold Room specifically in this screenshot is Cold Room, when you enchant it, it does whatever poison burn equal to its regeneration, right? So you're like, okay, when it goes off, it's going to deal 20 burn or whatever. You know, let's say it has 9 regeneration. It's going to do 9 burn. That is not true. It does burn equal to its regeneration, but it applies the burn every time you freeze. So when you use something like a stopwatch or a private hot springs, if you freeze 10 items, 20, not 20 items because that would be never happen, but if you freeze 15 items, you're going to apply 15 triggers of burn immediately. And if this is multicast, this is doing 30 burn triggers immediately. And because this is multicast also, I don't think it matters for that, but every time this goes off, you don't get 6 burn triggers every time this goes off because it's freezing 3 things. I think it counts as 1 freeze trigger because it's freeze 3 items for 1 second. It only counts as freezing 1 thing, but I believe it'll still triple charge this. It's a little bit weird with the way it works, but I've noticed certain things won't count as like multiple freeze triggers if it freezes multiple things. But That's another version of it. And I have the video that I was going to send Laliette that we might be on the channel. And then this is the other aspect, basically. Um, Anything with hot springs, right, is very good. Anything with fort and cold room is very good. And then the third and final one is basically, again, it's all about cold room, but this is specific. The engine is actually not even tied around cold room. It's just a very good item. It's tied around matchbox, weights, and sauna. Basically, every time you burn, sauna is every time you burn, you heal. Matchbox just triggers all the time, right? It burns a lot. So every time, this is basically a poor man's healing matchbox for your weights. Every time you burn, this will trigger heal, and you'll get regeneration, and you'll probably overheal, and you'll boost this up. When this gets full, this will increase the heal on the sauna and obviously on the bird. So these three together are just an engine that is really good. And then you slap in some more freeze, you slap in a really powerful cold room, and you've got yourself a build there. But it is all the builds that with Pig, other than HP Pig, that are really good are going to be some form of pay to win. They are going to be better. Even Fixer Upper is better if you have VIP Pass, which is a pay to win item. But yes, that is basically where we're at right now in the current game. What do you think about the current state?
I like the current state. We've talked before about we wish VIP Pass was just in the game. Switch it with like stopwatch or something.
That is so thematically makes sense. VIP Pass, baseline Pig item, stopwatch, the item that freezes all other items for 1 second. I'm convinced that stopwatch is in the base kit to make sense, that to basically, that way you want to buy the frozen stuff to have something that works with the stopwatch, because otherwise stopwatch doesn't do anything, man. It sucks. You don't want to freeze your own items.
Well, there was a period of time with the old cryo suit, right, where you did want to freeze your items and you could do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But now it's been nerfed and it's not as good. One thing I did want to call out Plat for, and I don't know if this is a call out, this is just you haven't sent me any screenshots of this, is when we did our patch video a few days ago, you were really believing in Billboard. And have you been using Billboard, and what's your success rate with it?
I have literally not, I think, found it even once. I think I haven't even had the opportunity to take it. But I would never play Billboard outside of Fixer Upper. So if I am going for like a Fixer Upper into Billboard, I think that is real. I think that's real still. I may have overestimated it, because like it's very possible. It doesn't, I've gone up against like the property guy that has Billboard, and it doesn't seem that strong. But they're not using like an optimal build. They're using like Skyscraper or something. Although that guy hits hard now. So I'll say I've probably overestimated it, but I think I've like not actually had the real opportunity to use it between cargo shorts and now being cold room pilled.
Well, I hope that you get a chance to use it over the next week so we can report back.
I will.
Because I have seen it a bunch of times. I refuse to take it. I'm not willing to take that risk.
I will. Don't worry. I always want to try new things. Like here, this is what I want to. I made this highlight, and I just want to say this might go on the YouTube channel because I wanted to do like a short or something. But this is modern cold room right now, and I muted it because I was talking there. So this is the fort build. Also, keep in mind what's doing the work here. Look at this stopwatch when it goes off. Watch this. This stopwatch is so strong right now. Look at this. It just goes. Everything's frozen. Goes. This gives it twice, so it triggers twice. Just goes. 346 regeneration. Most of their stuff was thing, and then 700. It's like these items are so strong together. It's crazy. That I wanted to highlight those. Ford is in a really good spot.
And unfortunately, you're probably going to end up, like, not just you, but people playing in the same style, right? You like really using Cold Room in its best ways, using Fort, right? I don't think they can really nerf Fort, because what they did is they gave 4 multicast things out, right? It's like and Vanessa has 2 of them. Is that correct? Or no. Dooley has 2. The Robotic Factory,
and the bunker.
Yes, and then you have Fort, and then Vanessa has shipwreck.
Yeah, and so everyone has a thematic multicast that is part of their core identity. I think Fort might be the best out of all of them, as it's the only one that debuffs your enemies. It also allows you to apply multicast to like a wider range of things. You could even level it up. This is what's so cool. When you level it up, it goes from 1 second on everything to 2 seconds on everything. So items that previously didn't get multicast can now get multicast. So it actually has a different pool of items and effects at different levels. And it just slows down your opponents, which is so good. But I think
So if it doesn't,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, you read it, it's such a fair item. What's unfair is items with faux cooldowns, like Cold Room, that has a 10-second cooldown, but it doesn't activate in 10 seconds. It's much shorter in reality. Kind of like, imagine if Vanessa had the fort, and every time you used the boulder, it was guaranteed multicast. Every time you used the primordial thing, it was guaranteed multicast, right? Like these items that have 30-second cooldowns, 20-second cooldowns, but they actually haste really fast. So I'm not sure how if they're gonna change anything. Maybe it's only a top pig player move for their pay to win players. I think it's borderline getting too powerful for sure, though.
Yeah, so the more time we have to play around with stuff, you really get to find out like what's the best uses for things, and this is one of the issues with balancing. And to be fair, me and Platt said many times early in our podcast that we never thought they were going to be able to get a true balance, right? We thought it was going to have to be every 2 weeks, changing it up because there's always going to be something broken. The bonkening was a huge positive step, but it is harder than ever to balance the best use case of an item to the average use case of an item, right? So it's like Cold Room at silver on your board for any reason, not really worth playing. Cold Room at diamond with fort, busted. Like these are some balancing issues. How do we make Cold Room nerfed so that it's not as good at the top end? We'll also nerf it right before we give it to free to play players because that's super shitty, right?
I know that's probably going to be what happens, man.
That's what I predict. But if you nerf it in like some flatline way, then it just becomes even more unplayable at silver.
Yeah. It's not even very good at silver, like at all. It's because I think they could absolutely balance it in some way. But like, this is one of the reasons why we did this was when the game came out, it was so broken in so many different, it was so broken in some ways that weren't even uncovered until they fixed some of the broken stuff. Like all the triggered stuff wasn't even considered broken at the start. Like pufferfish was probably trigger day one, but it was sucks because of how good all this other stuff was. And so they kept making these changes and things kept being absurdly broken. And I remember saying like something along the lines of like, I have zero confidence that they'll ever be able to actually balance this game because it's so all over the place. And if we look at where the game is at today, it is so much better. Like where we're at to where they've come is they've continuously proven to me that they're going in the right direction. It's never in this like giant everything is suddenly fixed way, but it's always like, I don't know, something gets broken, they pat that down while making adjustments to everything. Like the bonketing was huge. The D triggering of everything, where everything is now a charge that used to be a trigger, is huge. So they've just done such a good job. Honestly, I am impressed because I had confidence they'd make a fun game. I lost confidence that they'd be able to balance it, and I think that they've proven to me that they can at this point.
Yes, and the last thing I want to end the cast with is this was kind of like a very light in the last episode that I predicted this, but we did predict it a little bit harder in our unreleased episode from a week ago. But I've been really on the train that I think Mac is coming out with the Nyx Battle Pass. As to where he is, it's going to be super shitty if they put him at level 25 on the paid pass because I'm paying 10k gems to get him day one. But
Yes.
Nonetheless, I'll let Platt share with you the newest reason why I believe that he is going to be ready.
They just released that video. They released the Mac video. I don't have it pulled up right now, so I don't have the ability to pull it up. Without, I can make the podcast look bad for a minute. It doesn't look that good in the first place. All right. Oh,
But yeah,
they're gonna
it's
see.
a video that goes over the alchemists, right, and really focuses on Mac.
There we go. Yeah, you can see it where Laliette's face should be. Let's visit site. Let's grab this. Let's put it up here. And then let's put this down. So yeah, they basically just released this going all over the alchemists. Plus, also in the last patch, they made a lot of changes to Mac's items. And so even
And
though
to the regeneration mechanic, right?
yes.
Now that it crits.
So he must, like, because I don't know if there's an item in the game that only does regeneration outside of Mac. I don't think Pig has something that burns and can crit. Other characters have things that can gain regeneration, but it's not usually a solo thing. Because obviously, like, Cold Room freezes and then gives you regeneration when you freeze. But this was the Mac has some items I think that purely do a regeneration and then maybe have a triggered effect off of that. But yeah, so Mac should be coming pretty soon. I wouldn't be surprised
And
if
we've
in
seen
the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, well, that's my guess, right? April 2nd or April 3rd, whenever the next battle passes. There's a couple people in here that we haven't seen before, right? You just saw that pink-haired girl.
Yeah,
Never seen her, right?
there's at least one in here that I've seen that will be.
And that one?
I don't know if it's this one or the other one, but one of them will be a potion merchant, for sure, right? Like
Yes, I
sells
think I think
her.
this girl is a potion merchant, right?
Yes, and then what kind of merchant is this other one here? This one, what do they sell? Obviously, it's poison, but we already have a poison merchant sells poison items.
Right.
So
Is this poison and burn items?
oh yeah, she's a phoenix, so maybe she sells poison and burn items. Yeah, would be very cool. Maybe it's like yeah, because we already have a regeneration, but we don't have anything that sells. Because the burn guy and the poison guy, they typically sell enchanted stuff with that kind of stuff, like very commonly. They don't always, but this might be like unenchanted items that just passively have poison or burn in them. Because she obviously has a very fire aspect, but this is obviously poison.
Yeah,
Plus,
we
Mac
also
might
might
need that
fight her.
support. She might just be a boss. Also, this guy doesn't have this border. What is that? This guy should have the super border. I think these are all in the game. This is like such. You're literally showing like slow items, freeze items, burn items, haste items, and then the normal dude that sells healing skills. Like, why is this person here? Maybe they were gonna be a merchant at some point, instead of a Pygmalion bad skill vendor. Maybe they're good for Mac though. But yeah, it looks like also Mac is apparently infinite years old. He's like, I am hundreds and hundreds of years old. I'm like, all right, buddy, calm down. See here, he smacks the bottle. He looks kind of cool. I'm excited for Mac. I'm excited because I love damage over time. I love regeneration. I love the potion feel. So I like his whole kit. Sounds really cool. So I might switch from Pygmalion to Mac. I might play Mac for a week and realize I like Pygmalion more. We don't know. It's hard to say. We'll be the Mac cast after that, right?
Yeah, just cross it out, right? No, I'm just excited to play with a different character and some different mechanics. I've always tried to play all of the characters, although I'm not gonna lie to you. This patch, I haven't really enjoyed playing Vanessa, as I've never liked one weapon builds. Just never been something I've enjoyed. I think Poison Vanessa or Aquatic Vanessa is pretty weak right now. I think Ammo and Weapon Vanessa isn't that strong. Like, I'd rather just play Dooley if I'm going to try to really be aggro.
Yeah.
Burn Vanessa is good, but I feel like you have to roll on, like, when you miss your burn skill on the gold skill vendor, you don't get to play really Burn Vanessa, and that feels bad.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the new character as well. And yeah, I mean, you don't need to hear me say I don't play Vanessa and don't play Dooley. Everyone knows that. At this point, I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm fine just like continuing to specialize. But I will branch out as they make new characters. Like, I'm not that interested in the cooking lady. I'm not that interested in the tool lady. Maybe I will really like them. I'll play them when they come out. But Mac is definitely was my most hyped character. That I've seen. He's the one I wanted to play day one. If it wasn't Pygmalion, I wanted to play potions or I wanted to play economy. I just like poison. I like poison, burn, and that kind of stuff. So also I love the Pygmalion. The regeneration is relatively new on him. He had the whatever sign, but he added a lot of regeneration in the new kit. I don't fully understand it. I guess it's the sauna is relaxing is kind of the whole idea of it. The cold room is like something that helps you relax and get your mentality back. But I feel like Max is all built around his infinite life, right? That he's 900 years old. It's like he has a passive like body regeneration. So I think that it does probably fit really nicely into his lore overall.
Yeah. And let's go ahead and just take a stab in the dark. So HP totals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pig's got 300. Other two characters have 250. What do we think Max coming in at?
Oh, interesting. I bet 250. I bet Pig is the only character that gets 300 as part of like because Pig is the only character, and I think Mac is the same. You know, if you include him too, no other character scales HP really. I don't think Dooley has a single HP scaling like item, right?
What? Walter Cooler.
Okay, I don't know what that is. So to be fair, so yes, okay, they got the one, and then they got the. Does Vanessa have anything that scales HP?
Not off the top of my head.
So and Pygmalion not only has one, but he's got like a bunch, right? I mean, there's pawn shop, there's belt. Those are flat increases that make your percent increases. You get naturally better. He's got the ring. He's got. I mean, everyone's got chocolate bars, but he's got the lemonade stand. He's got the ability to get the property that gives him chocolate bars. He gets every time he sells an item, he gets chocolate bars. He just has, you know, he has globe. He has the walking cane. I mean, there's a dozen ways for Pygmalion to get max HP. I didn't see anything like that in any of Max items. So I think I think that's right now until they're going to add a character that's like a dude made of rock, and he's going to be even more HP focused than Pig, and he's not going to have any econ at all. But I think until then, I don't think anyone's going to even be in the same ballpark with HP totals as Pig. Yeah, but if someone does do it, he would be the second character. He's more likely than Vanessa or Dooley because of his infinite life. But I think that's going to be through regeneration, mostly.
Absolutely. I think there's so much design space, like just how you're talking, like a rock guy, right? And then he just doesn't. He's Pig as far as like HP scaling and stuff. Maybe even regen, but we're not going to be having the whole.
So they can introduce. Are you still there? Sorry, it sounded like we might have disconnected for a second.
I just blinked.
Yeah. Okay. So like, even if you just take all the current mechanics in the game, assuming they add no new mechanics, which I guarantee you they have ideas for new mechanics, but even if they don't add anything, you could just combine the current mechanics in different ways, right? Like a character like the rock guy could easily have the HP mechanics, but he could be also very friend focused, like Dooley, right? He could be the mountain, and then he has a bunch of like rock gnomes or something, right? Because Pig doesn't do anything with friends other than the bird, who just happens to be a friend, and Beast of Burden, but he's every type. Or then you could just take these pieces and combine them in different ways. Like you could have an entirely poison economy person, where they're buying really expensive poisons or something. I don't know. There's lots of ways you can combine this. You could have a weapon focused character that also cares about freeze or something. You got to be careful how you combine these things. But again, even the characters like Pig has and Vanessa, they have a lot of these mechanics. They're emphasized in different ways. So you can have big emphasis on one thing and then a small emphasis on these other things. So, but that's not even, I guarantee you they're going to add other mechanics, like apply shocked. What does shocked do? I don't know. Are they going to add, magical damage, which is like, it's a weapon that does magical damage that can maybe pierce through shields, but it does like on average, like there's a bunch of shit they could do.
Yes.
So I'm excited. There's a lot of design space.
So the reason I asked you about his HP is because like my prediction, and I just think it would be cool if they did it, 250 HP, and I'm not sure the number that maths out correctly, but like 2 regen.
Ooh, if he starts with regen, like baseline, that would be very just flavor. I vote for that, just purely flavor. Max should always start with regen as part of his lore, because he obviously has an eternal life. Now, they could explain it where he gets. I bet Mac might have the second most HP compared to Pig, because he might have a bunch of items that give him temporary HP in combat to kind of signify that he's taking things to extend his life, but it's not natural. They could do all kinds of flavor stuff like that. But I vote, please give Mac some amount of baseline regeneration just to be like, ooh, that's such a nice little taste of flavor right there.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's powerful. I don't care if it means anything in the difference, but it's such a good idea, I think.
Yep. Even if he started with his own like hero skill that gave you like one regen per level, something that at the end of the game won't matter at all, but is flavorful, and of course, that little bit of regen just makes you a little bit more tanky than the other two heroes at 250.
You're right. There's no reason he has to follow the start of run that we're used to. He could have a dually core system. I don't want him to because I don't really like that, but it could be like he could start with like a special brew, right? He has 1 of 3 brews. One of them will give him regeneration to start with. One of them will give him more HP, in one of them, I don't know, whatever. They could be items on the board. Literally, they could be potions he starts with. But they could do something interesting with the starter run effects. I think they want to keep most people on the standard thing, but I feel like they should feel free for characters that it makes sense for to have a more personalized thing. But yeah, to start it with a school, it's like, yeah, starting with a skill, 1 regeneration per level. That's a good idea. You've got a couple of good ideas today. You're holding up your end of the couch. I'll tell you that. So good job.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I've said everything I've got to say. How about you, Platin?
Well, we could make it 10 minutes longer. That way we can make a 2-hour podcast. All right, let's not. Let's go. Well, we can. It's 1 a.m. where you are, right? Or 2 a.m. I think where you are. You got to go to bed.
Almost 2.
I've got some videos to record myself. So we are going to end it here, guys. Thank you for watching the Pygcast. Leave a comment, leave a like. That's not a question. I'm telling you to do that. If you made it this far, otherwise Laliet will find you. He knows how to use AI, so he will track you down. Anyway, much love for Platypus and Laliet are for Platypus. We will see you all on the flip-flops. Bye. Watch the views go up. Content king, never down, always showing up, hitting milestones. The fame never lets up. Click that link, dive in deep, never get enough. Gaming, vlogging, every trend.